It's here, mate.
Are we starting?
Yeah.
Is this officially underway?
It's officially underway.
Wow.
I didn't know how we were going to start it, so we're just,
Go with it.
Guys, welcome to the first ever episode of the Drive Talk podcast. I am Pete, on YouTube known as Petrolped.
And I am Joe, on YouTube known as Joe Achilles.
Yeah, I will talk about naming of channels. You just went with your name and I went with a clever name, and I wish I hadn't, but never mind.
Yeah, but it's part of the branding, isn't it? It was always a risk, depending on which way you went. But yeah, I can't believe this is real.
I know.
We've had so much to say up until the point that we pressed record, and now we're both sitting here a little bit nervous.
It's quite nerve-wracking, actually. There's been a lot of planning and a lot of thought gone into this. So, as I said, welcome to the first episode of Drive Talk podcast. Joe and I, we've been doing YouTube now for 7.5 years for me, a bit longer for you.
Yeah, about 10 years almost.
And we thought we'd get a podcast going, and we'll tell you in this episode our reasoning behind that and our hopes and aspirations for the podcast. For those people who haven't come across us on YouTube before, a little bit of background, how we got into YouTube. But I guess the first thing we wanted to mention was we wouldn't be here without the help of some really cool brands supporting us.
Absolutely.
And I guess the first of those is it's a real honour to have this podcast supported by Michelin.
100%. Yeah, it's almost a dream. I mean,
Yeah.
it's above and beyond what we expected. And as you said, I think this was a pipe dream for both of us about a year ago. We've worked a lot behind the scenes talking about it. It has dragged on a lot over the past 6 months, but I'm glad that it has, because it's put us in the position that we're in today with not only Michelin and some other great sponsors, and it's awesome for something that doesn't even exist up until this point.
Yeah.
It's amazing, but I say it doesn't even exist. We kind of launched it softly yesterday, and
Well, it's nuts, really. Last night we announced it at 6 o'clock last night. It's now the 11th of April, so Tuesday morning. It's midday.
Yep.
And we're just about to hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, and we haven't actually uploaded a video yet. So by the time this drops on Friday, and you guys are watching it, hopefully we'll have many more than that. But let's just have a bit of a chat about the brand supporting us. So Michelin, having them on board is amazing. The big thing, and having old Bibendum joining us, the big thing for me, having Michelin involved in this podcast is all about access to amazing content, places, people, and just getting behind the scenes and behind the stories of some really cool things. And that hopefully over the next few months will bear out. I know you've been involved in Michelin as a brand for the last 12 months or so as a brand ambassador. We both, I guess the big important thing is organically, we're only going to work with brands that we actually believe in and use. So, we both run Michelin tires on our cars. I run them on my bikes, and it's a brand we really believe in.
I think that's a big thing, and that's something that I go on about my personal channel, and you do, is we both are in a fortunate position that we get offered a lot of brand deals these days. I reckon 95% of them get turned down by both of us, because some of them look very suspicious, but many of them just don't sit right with us and our audience. And organically, unless we're going to go out and buy something with our own money and stand by it, what's the point in using or getting involved with a sponsor that has no relation with us?
Yeah.
And I think Michelin, for both of us, as you say, is a great natural sort of relationship.
Yeah.
As are many other things. So we've also got Manfrotto tripods, and one of the nicest, or if not the nicest, gear bag ever that Ed and I have been fighting over for our own personal channels. But yeah, getting involved with Manfrotto. We turned up today, and actually Patrick, who's here with us today, our production wizard, he runs Manfrotto. You do, I do, naturally before this. So that's awesome. And then we've got Joby mic stands, which are very, very cool. So yeah, we're very grateful for all of that and where we are.
Exactly. So I don't know whether, hopefully the background noise, we're in Podium Place in the Podium Paddock in Newbury, and both of us have done quite a few things here. And when we were putting the podcast together, we needed a place to record it because we live quite a long way from each other, and this happens to be about halfway between the two.
Yep.
So it was a natural place to come and record the podcast, and they've been amazing and given us access to the paddock for the day. But there is a workshop next door, and I think that's the air compressor. So hopefully that's not going to affect the audio too badly. And we're getting nods or shake of the head from Patrick, who's going to be doing the editing for us. So he's not worried. That's good.
Yeah, that is a confident face if I've ever seen one. Talking about seeing things, now obviously this is a podcast, but we are hosting it on YouTube and via normal podcast streams. So, and I really enjoy that about a lot of podcasts that I listen to and watch, because if I'm at home and I have the time, I'll be watching it, because there's always more to pick up on if you're watching things.
Yep.
But the great thing with podcasts is you can then be listening to them in the car or on the plane or wherever. And I really like that aspect of it. So hopefully you'll listen to it and then watch it on YouTube. That would just be the best, you know?
Exactly. You can get the double the view count.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's have a chat about why or how we got here, because I get asked lots of times, you know, how do you start YouTube? How do you get into it? And I think the landscape today is probably quite different than what it was like when we started. It's a very, in the automotive space, quite a difficult thing to break through. There's lots of people who want to get into YouTube. I guess they see the larger channels getting to drive cool cars or go to cool events, and that looks very attractive. It certainly did for me. It was one of the reasons I started it. But we thought it'd be useful to kind of talk through how we both got into YouTube and how we built our channels to where they are, and then we'll have a chat about what our aspirations are for the podcast and the kind of things, because we talk to each other a lot. We WhatsApp each other all the time when he's not flying around all over the world, that is. We have quite varied opinions on things, and I know Joe thinks quite differently about some things to me, and vice versa. So I'm not so sure it's going to be a case of us both agreeing to everything.
No,
I agree with you, mate. Yeah. Everything you say is exactly what I think. That's just not going to happen. I don't think we'll ever fall out about it, but I'm sure we're going to have some heated debates.
But I think that's why we decided to ultimately do it in the end, was because if we both did have the same mindset about everything, it wouldn't really be a discussion, would it? It would just be a yes. And hopefully you guys and girls also have differing opinions to both of us. But mostly agree with me, obviously. But at the same time, we both have a massive passion, which is the automotive world. Yeah. Anything with wheels and Michelin tires, and an engine or an electric motor, whatever. That's what brings us here together, and I think that's kind of what Podium Place is about as well. It's the passion of somewhere like this on a weekend. It doesn't matter what you're driving. Or how much money you earn, it just brings everyone together on the same level, doesn't it? It's such a cool hobby, or for us now, living, to share.
Did you say you had a passion for something with an electric motor?
I said that because you're sitting next to me.
That's such a...
I think, well, this is something that we will talk a lot more about in coming episodes. And I think a lot of people believe that I have this, I would call it almost hatred towards electric cars, which I don't at all. I just have, I'm more of a petrol head, born and bred. I think it's in my veins. And I think there's definitely a time and a place for electric cars as well, as the world evolves and things move on.
What you could do is call your channel Petrolped and then review electric cars. That's always quite difficult. So anyway, let's go back in time.
Yes.
We'll talk about you first. Now, I've been lucky enough to hear you talk about your career pre-YouTube, and actually we might do a podcast on that, because you have the most varied life pre-YouTube. Anything from working in a supermodel agency to being a downhill mountain biker and a world Brompton cycling champion. But how did you get into YouTube? What was your if you like, your Kickstarter, your inspiration? Why did you do it?
So if we rewind to September 2013, I went and picked up an M135i, which at the time I guess I could afford. It was financed. I was stretching it a little bit, but
some things never change then.
Some things never change, yeah. And and I picked this car up because I'd seen a Chris Harris review of it at the time, and it was absolutely, I mean, everyone was raving about it. So I got one of those, and instantly, because I had one of those, on forums and stuff, people wanted to see more. They wanted to see launch control videos. They wanted to see little clips on how to use a sat nav or whatever it might be. So I started doing smaller videos, some of which are still on the channel, some of which aren't. And I very quickly realized that there was a lot of love for this car, and people seemed to like what I was producing, even though at the time there was hardly any talking. It was just small little snippets of whatever. But this is sort of circa 10 years ago. So I continued to do that and build up a small audience on YouTube, move away from the forum and put it mostly onto YouTube. Use the forum as a platform to share things. And that kind of progressed a bit. A couple of years after that, I was in a long-term relationship, and that kind of ended. So I spent about 4 or 5 years living on my own, and I was a chauffeur then as well. So I had a lot of spare time in some weeks, and then not so much or any time in other weeks, as a self-employed person, essentially. So I had this spare time to fill, and rather than going out and, putting it all up against the wall and drinking too much or partying, which I might have done as a younger person, I decided to invest all of that time and energy into making videos on whatever it was. At the time, mostly my car, because that was the access I could get, or cars that I borrowed off dealerships and stuff. And that's really what built the foundation of my channel. People got to know me. They got to know my love for BMW especially. And then I just built on that and put a lot of time, investment, and money. People don't realize the money. You do. The amount of money that I put in back in the early days, you never saw any of that back for many years. Whether it was petrol expenses or taking the car abroad or track day stuff, whatever it was, it's always going to cost money. Camera gear, the time that you're not working, all these things that go on behind the scenes. But I'm so glad that I did that, because now I look back on maybe some of the struggles I had, and I just love what I'm doing for a living now. I love my life in that aspect, and it's made me a much harder worker. It's made me appreciate things. I don't take anything for granted. You and I have been on some amazing trips this year, which we will talk about. And I still pinch myself every time I'm on these trips, or every time I'm given a nice car. Being down here now with you, I've watched your content for many years. Obviously, I know you very well, but just sitting here with you is a real sort of eye opener. And seeing everything in front of us here, a lot of which we've been given for the podcast. It's a real, you just feel very, not privileged because you've worked hard to get there, but it is an amazing achievement, I think, for both of us. And I'm not embarrassed to say that, and I don't feel big-headed by saying that, although I do have a physically big head.
You do.
Yeah. But yeah, and that's really it. I think it was just, it was finding a subject and a car and an audience, and that audience, still a lot of that audience to this day is still with me. And then bringing them along. And I think very much like with you, what I like to do, aside from review a car as well as I can and be as honest and open as possible, or whatever it might be, a car or product, I also like to share that journey with people, and I like to bring them along. And I think that's why I know a lot of people don't follow either of us on Instagram that watch our YouTube content, and I really urge you to, because there's so much stuff that goes on Instagram that's kind of live on these events, that it's me and you trying to share exactly what we're doing with our audiences,
Yeah.
Because we're both there we're both like kids in sweet shops on a lot of these events. We get overly excited, and it's like we want to share this as quickly as possible with the people that are loyal to us, because that's what our life's all about. So, and then fast forward to today. And here I am, still with a BMW or two, a very dirty one outside. Yeah. But I mean, anyone that's looking to start a YouTube channel today, especially, I think it just it's hard work. Firstly, it's passion. Are you actually passionate about cars?
Yeah.
If that's what you should go with your passion. then it's hard work and investment in time and money. It really is. You might get lucky. You might have something that pops or a couple of things that pop. And it's also coming up with clever ideas, because I think you see some YouTubers are absolutely flying at the moment, the likes of Matt Armstrong and stuff. But do I envy what he does? I couldn't do that. I couldn't take the risks that he does with some of his cars. And I think he's very unique and he does an incredible job. And the same with even someone like Tim. And talking to Tim, Tim, I don't envy Tim's life, because we both spent time with him. I've spent a lot of time with him, done a lot of trips with Tim, and I couldn't work that hard. He never switches off. He's always doing something for the channel. And obviously it shows in his numbers and the size of his channel, but I couldn't personally do that. I already feel a bit burnt out from what I do. And I think...
How many videos a week do you do?
I aim for 2 videos a week.
Right, so I do 3.
Yep.
Tim has averaged more than a video a day for 12 years. It's just think on that.
I know. How do you... I mean, you fair play. You did in 2020 during lockdowns.
Yeah.
You did how many?
I did 10 weeks of a video a day.
Yeah,
and that
and you got to remember, then you had nothing to do but just in a sense we're very stuck with what we could do. But even then, I remember thinking, how do you do that? I couldn't do that for a week. I don't think I'd burn out. But then there's also it's how you shoot your videos, isn't it? I mean, you look at Tim's, he's very oiled with what he does. Everything is basically in order. He plugs his memory card in, the video's 50% there, he edits a bit, and it's all ready to go. Yeah. Whereas I'll do 50 takes on an intro. I'll spend way too long doing B-roll, most of which I won't use. And we've all got very different styles, I guess.
I think we could do an episode on how we make our videos, actually, because I often get people say, "Oh, do you need help editing?"
Yep.
Editing company. I'm like, mate, seriously, I film my videos based on how I edit. Neither of us are the best editors in the world. I think we'll be
definitely not.
Put our hands up.
Yeah.
But I think that going back to when you start, I think we were both similar as well. We are both what I would call single shooters. We do everything ourselves. Yep. Unlike some of the bigger channels or the ones that do the more kind of cinematic type videos, they'll have 1 or 2 people helping them filming.
Yep.
95% of the time it's me and you, and that's it. You have to do everything.
Yep.
Film it, edit it, publish it, script it.
Yep.
It's and you learn that. I mean, I know when I go back to when I started, I guess similar to you, passionate about cars, always loved driving. I've had a career as someone who stands up and talks to people and presents and stuff, so I thought, well, I'm quite good at that. I know I'll give it a go. And I went and bought a camcorder. I remember I went into Curry's in Chichester and bought this 200 quid Sony camcorder. And I got home and I had my Mini. I thought, I'll do a video about my Mini. And I kind of did the, typical selfie view thing, videoed it, and then went in and thought, what do I do now? Because I got all this video on the camera memory card, and I'm like, what do I do now? So I then had to open up some free editing software and teach myself how to edit, and then you just get a bit better every time you make a film, and you kind of, I'm still rubbish at editing.
Well, I think I get better, and then I sit next to Patrick on a flight, and he'll watch me edit, and he's literally sitting there sniggering away, and I'm like, "You okay, mate?" He's like, "What are you doing? Like, why are you not? I taught you this already, Joe." What? And then you see someone like Pat or someone who can edit, and you're just like, well, that's frustrating.
So Patrick, we should mention Patrick, because he is the hidden member of the team. He's behind the cameras right now.
Yep.
And he's the guy that's going to edit the podcast.
Hopefully make us look good and exactly. Funny somehow, I think.
And him editing it will take literally 1/10 the time than if we did it.
Yeah, Patrick from Talk More, big shout out to Pat. Yeah. He's obviously a mutual friend of ours. I've known Pat for many years, even though he's still only, what are you, 18 or something? But no, Pat's amazing. And I am fortunate, just going off what you were saying then, I have been on a handful of trips with Pat where if there's budget or there's something and we can justify bringing a Pat along, then it's awesome. But it is also, I think it's also very satisfying for both of us to be one-man bands in that sense. And And when you do talk to people, especially people with a film background or TV background, and you might sit next to someone random on a plane, whatever, and they're like, okay, so who does? No, I do that. So who? I do that. So who? I do that. So who? And it's just, and then they get to the end, they're like, but what about the editing? I do that. And they're just like, what? So you do everything? It's like, yeah, from the planning at the beginning of whatever it is we're going to shoot to the editing and then the putting it up. And I think that's quite an achievement. I think it also gets overlooked in this day and age. You know, it's all very well. There's so many YouTubers and content creators out there, and it's great. And we all have a great life and we earn a living out of it. That's good. But it does get overlooked when you see these awards and and you're like, yeah, but that, you know, Top Gear, yeah, but they got 50 people behind the scenes, or you know what I mean? And you look at the numbers, you're like, well, yeah, that's a one-man band. I did pretty well.
Yeah, and I think, you know, people say, well, why don't you have someone help you? And it's a simple thing. Then they're not going to do it for free.
No.
They might do it for free. I get a bit like you, I get my next door neighbours, Will and Mike next door. They're you know, often at home, and I'll say, I've got a nice car. Can you come and help me do some flybys? Or,
yeah,
you know, and they'll help with filming. And that's really, really great. But they wouldn't do that every day.
No,
nothing.
No. Yeah, that's what it comes down to at the moment. At the bottom of the line is budget, isn't it? It's like how much budget do you want to have, and how you've also got to be very careful because it's massively seasonal. What we earn off YouTube, if you just take like ad revenue, 1 month can be up here, and then the very next month can be down there. And if you're paying someone based on that month, then you're going to be in trouble the very next month. And I think you've just got to be very careful and self-sufficient with what you're spending and sort of how you're dealing with it all.
I think if there are people who want to get into YouTube, I would always say absolutely give it a go. All of these things we're just talking about, the great thing about them is their skills, and I really enjoyed the process of learning how to edit. I love the process of trying to film something. I'll watch a video on YouTube and I'll think that's a really cool shot or a cool way of doing something.
Yeah.
Normally, obviously yours. And I'll try and replicate that. I'll never try and copy it.
Yeah.
And I remember actually going back to Patrick, who's behind the camera, I remember having a chat with him many years ago when I was quite a small channel. And I said, look, I'd really like to kind of grow my channel. And he said, what's your angle? What's your USP, if you like? What's the story of the channel? And I think that's important, that you have to have your own approach, your own way of looking at things, and in your own style. You can't try and be a Tim or a Carfection or a Matt Armstrong. It just doesn't work. You'll get found out quite quickly.
Yeah.
You have to be you.
Yeah.
And hope that you is interesting enough and engaging enough.
Yep.
You have to engage with your audience. And for me, one of the things about the podcast is I'm really keen, and both of us are really keen, to get you guys watching or listening as involved as possible, whether that's commenting and giving us ideas for content. I've already had, even since we launched last night, people giving us questions that they'd like us to talk about, whether that's on a tyre front, maybe talking about the difference between eco tyres on an EV to performance tyres on a high-performance sports car, what's the difference?
Yep.
It might well be guests that they want to have on.
Yep.
It may well be events that they want us to go to. So, you know, that's the first level of interaction. And then ultimately, although we're going to need to practice first a little bit, I'm getting less nervous, by the way. We're about 25 minutes in and my nerves have started to relax. I'm becoming more like just having a chat down the pub with me mate.
Yeah.
But ultimately, we'd love to do these in front of a live audience and have that live interaction.
Absolutely.
And certainly here at Podium Place, there's scope for us to do that. And we've already started to understand how the mechanisms for doing that. But the really interesting thing, going back to the starting a YouTube channel, when you start, you don't know what kit you need, what cameras you're going to use. Every YouTuber I've ever met has a different camera setup and uses, you use very different cameras to me. We use similar cameras in car. I think most people nowadays are pretty much set around GoPros, but there's lots of different types of GoPros and lots of different audio setups and stuff.
Yeah.
But then we said, right, we're going to start a podcast. And we're like, great. How do we do that? What kit do we need?
Yeah.
So it was literally a case of Googling the right podcast desk and the right microphones, and then how are we going to do the audio and the video, and we want it to be really good quality. And that's been, for me, already a really interesting process.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about YouTube. Every day I get up and I think, okay, what videos am I going to make today? How am I going to do it? How am I going to film it? Is that car worthy of taking to Wales, or what kind of cool story I'm going to try and come up with? That's that compressor going off again.
Yeah, it's quite loud. So apologies if you can hear it. I know these mics are very good. You're probably like me. You're doing intro at the side of the road with a lapel mic or wherever it might be, and there'll be like a plane or something. You stop and then you do it again and again, and then you get back home and you're like, oh, I can't even hear the thing in the video. So hopefully, but as we say, this is like a live place. There's actually a live workshop downstairs, so you have to excuse the sound.
I quite like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, stuff going on.
So one of the things that so you've talked about how you kind of you grew, and I was very similar, but I guess the question I get asked most, that you use a term, people often say, oh, you're really lucky to get invited on that trip. And,
yes.
And I remember back, I think it was the golf, I think it might have been Gary Player said something, and I said, it's amazing that the more I practice, the luckier I get. And YouTube, I think it's the harder you work, the luckier you get.
Yes.
Yes, we are lucky to go on these trips or get access to the cars we do or meet the people we do.
Yeah.
But that's on the back of a lot of hard work.
You make your own luck, don't you, in many ways?
Yeah, and I don't think I've ever worked so hard. Now I work for myself. This is what I do.
Yeah.
And I'm never switching off. I have to, when I go on holiday, I almost have like a social media detox. I have to put the phone away.
Yeah.
When I last year, I actually put the phone in the hotel safe for the day.
Yeah.
So that I wasn't tempted to quickly check, any comments coming in.
For your own sanity and also for your own relationship, I think, as well. Because we both have lovely partners that put up with a lot of what we do. And it wouldn't work any other way, would it? Like, if they didn't give us the time and the space to do what we need to do, we couldn't do this, but vice versa. But that's the other thing you need, is a patient partner and someone that understands and gets it, because it does become quite selfish at times. If you've got videos coming up, if you're away at events, or, even our podcast now, that's just something else to fit into our very busy schedule.
Yeah.
But I'm very much, we're doing it now, but I've been very much looking forward to sitting down and getting this underway.
Yeah.
Because it's great. It does feel very good now that I've warmed up nearly 30 minutes in.
You're chilling out now.
I'm feeling much more relaxed, yeah, and like I'm sitting here with a mate discussing, or about to discuss, a lot of things to do with the automotive world.
But I think when you start off your channel and, you put videos out there, and I remember I put my first video up. I think when I started my channel, I'd already banked about 6 or 7 videos, and I scheduled them to drop sort of a couple a week, just to try and fill my channel up with some content. But I remember the first video going live and it was watched by like 30 people or something.
Yeah.
Oh, no. What am I doing? And it takes a long time, and then you start to build the momentum, but you very rapidly get addicted. And I see why social media addiction is such a thing, because you get addicted to, when that video drops, watching the views come in. And you're probably the same as me. Every time a video drops, I had a video drop last night. It was the announcement of the podcast, actually.
Yeah.
And every half an hour, I'm picking the phone up, seeing how it's doing, and seeing what the comments are like, and are the comments positive, are they negative?
Yep.
We could do a podcast on social media hate as well.
Yes. Yeah.
There's plenty of that.
Yeah.
I've been very lucky. But I remember you said to me once, I think you'd been talking to Tim and about sort of, getting some grief on social media, and Tim's response, which I still hold to, he said, the day you start getting hate on the internet is the day you're making it.
Yeah. And that is so true, isn't it? Because at the start, it's nothing but love, because you're such a small channel that anyone that's there is there because they support and love what you're doing, or support what you're doing.
A bit like all the comments we've had for the podcast so far. They've all been really positive.
Yes, exactly.
We haven't had any hate yet. But wait till we've done a few episodes and they realise we don't know what we're talking about.
Yes, well, that's it. Yeah, I know. Yeah, let's see how that goes. But yeah, it's true, isn't it? You do get to a point, and there's a tipping point. But unfortunately, the world we live in, well, it's never changed. There's always been haters out there, people that are either jealous of what you do, or maybe aren't going through a great period in life or whatever. You never know what their personal situation is, do you? And I'm sure I've done it in the past as well, without stopping and thinking about what I've just said, maybe in a comment or whatever. But at the end of the day, that's just that. It's like people say, oh, well, you put yourself up there now. You should be prepared to receive hate or whatever. And yes, it's very easy saying that, but it's funny. You do focus on those one or two negative things. You might get 1,000 nice comments and 1 or 2 negatives. And why do you focus on the 1 or 2 negatives? They shouldn't matter. But you do, naturally you do. I think if you're a normal human being, it's human instinct, isn't it? You focus on the negative, and it's like,
I think the challenge, and I literally had it the last couple of weeks, is if you're doing a video on a car and you're going to, I don't know, talk about its performance, statistics, specs, that kind of thing. If you make a mistake, the internet will let you know, right? And it lets you know really, really quickly.
Yes.
But being perfect is really difficult.
Yeah.
So I did a video. I'm going to talk about this now. I'm going to do a retraction video on my channel, actually. But it really, and I'm not one to kind of let things get on top of me, but this really got on top of me. So I did a comparison between my Porsche, which is for those of you who don't know, it's a 718 Boxster, 2.5 litre, so the flat 4 GTS, and I compared it with the flat 6 4-litre GTS.
Yep.
And I got 3 things wrong.
Okay.
Right. Number one, I should have filmed it, and so it's all kind of, I'm making really bad excuses.
I was just about to say, I can see some excuses coming.
So I'd planned to film it at the end of the week, and it rained.
Yep.
And I watched your Skoda video last night, and you had problems with rain.
Yep.
One day of so that screwed me completely.
Yeah.
So I ended up having to film it on a Sunday.
Yep.
And I didn't have very long because we had plans. Now I'm full time. When I first started, I did everything at the weekend because I had a day job during the week.
Yep.
Now I try and do everything during the week because I want to try and spend the weekend with Tracy, and I don't want to film at the weekend.
Yep.
So I had to film at the weekend. So I wanted to get some comparative specs. So I did that from a website, but I kind of wasn't really thinking. And I got the weights wrong, the curb weights wrong, because I don't know whether they got slightly different. One was wet, one was dry.
Okay.
I said there was like 120 kilo difference between the two cars, and it was like 30 kilos.
Okay.
Big problem.
Yep.
Big mistake.
Yeah.
That's mistake number one. Second problem was I looked at the 0 to 60 times, and I quoted the 0 to 60 time of the 4 litre. I had the PDK, and I quoted the manual, and they're like half a second different.
Okay.
The internet let me know about that.
Yep.
The worst problem was I couldn't get comfy in the 4 litre. You've driven the 4 litre GTS.
Yeah, not the one that you had though.
No, I just couldn't I didn't fit in it. I just couldn't. It had the same seats as mine. I just could not get comfortable. After about an hour, I had a massively numb bum.
Yeah.
I looked at the seats. I tried to get them in the same position as mine. I just couldn't work it out at all. I had the car for about 5 days.
Yeah.
And the only conclusion I could come to was the cabin sizes were different.
Okay.
Right. Now, what I should have done, but it was the weekend, is I should have dropped Porsche an email and asked the question. But I couldn't because it was the weekend. So I just assumed that the cabin sizes were different. And I measured the seat from the front of the seat to the throttle on my car and on the 4 litre GTS.
Yep.
And there was nearly a 2-inch difference. So I assumed the cabin sizes were different because the engine was bigger and it needed more space.
Yeah.
That's not the case.
Wow, you really nailed it on that video.
Oh, mate, it was amazing. So I knew I'd, it was at this moment you realised you'd messed up.
Yes.
As soon as the video went live, I'm like, it's not good.
No.
And the comments I got in, and it's my bad, but it's amazing how when and it's happened a couple of times when you are given some information from a manufacturer and it might not be accurate. Yeah. Or from a normally it's dealers actually. Manufacturers are pretty good.
Yeah.
But God, it's merciless. And that played on me, and I'm going to do a video on my channel about it because it turns out the cars aren't different in cabin size.
Okay.
I still don't understand why I couldn't get comfortable in the 4 litre GTS at all. It was like literally too small for me. And I just made an educated assumption without necessarily checking it all.
Yeah.
That kind of thing for me plays on my mind more than someone saying, "Oh, you're an idiot."
Yeah.
Yeah. And just giving you hate for hate's sake.
Yeah.
And then the problem with that is it then plays on your mind. The next time you do a video, you're super conscious about getting everything right.
Yep.
And it's kind of spoils your flow a little bit because you're worried about. At the end of the day, I'm not a journalist. I'm just a guy who loves cars, loves driving, and I've created videos. I'm very honest in my videos. If I like something, I'll say I like it. If I don't, I'll say I don't like it.
Yeah.
But I'm just a human being. I get things wrong.
Yeah.
I'm not perfect.
Well, everyone does.
Yeah.
But you're right. That pressure of, and the worst thing sometimes is if you're on your own shoot and you're reading out something, or you're about to read out a spec and you check your phone, you'll sometimes get, especially weights. Weights are the big weights. You look on your phone and you'll get 10 different results for the same car for various, whether it's from Porsche Direct or, I don't know, from Fastlane or from CarWow or whatever. And you're like, well, which one do I go with?
Yeah, exactly. But the internet will tell you if you're wrong.
Oh, yes.
It's like, wow. And I've had a few people, you've got to do a retraction. You've got to say what you're wrong. I will. It was my bad. Hands up, my bad.
Yeah.
And it's a shame because that video is one I wanted to make for a long time.
Yeah.
But that's the bit that I think there is a pressure to make sure that you get things right, for sure. But it's dealing with that when things don't go right, when a video doesn't turn out quite how you want it to do, or doesn't perform. That's the worst one.
Yeah.
Probably have a podcast, a whole episode on that one. But
Yeah.
everything you've got into a video and it does really badly.
That's never happened to me before.
But there's no magic formula,
rhyme or reason,
for a successful video. And I think, when if you go to anybody, certainly if I look at my channel, people say, "Oh, how did you get to the point where brands would talk to you?"
Yeah.
Well, I started off filming with my cars like you did.
Yeah.
That builds up a kind of body of work. Then you might go and talk to a couple of local dealers.
Yeah.
And I was just super lucky. I had a couple of videos do really, really well. I remember them today. I had a Jaguar XES that did really well. It was the first video I ever made that did 10,000 views.
Wow.
And then I had the Range Rover Velar, a local dealer that does like track days at Goodwood.
Yeah.
And they let me drive it for like 25 minutes. I did a one-take review on 25 minutes, uploaded it, and the global embargo for that video or for that car literally just lifted that day.
Oh,
I had no idea because I wasn't, and it just went, "Boom."
Yeah.
First video to do 100,000 views.
Wow.
I was like, wow, this is great. If only I could do that every time.
Yeah.
But then sometimes you get videos that you think this is just going to fly, and it does really badly.
Yeah. Yeah. You can never predict, can you? I mean, there are some ingredients and variables that will ultimately make the video do well or not. If it's a new car, if it's an interesting new car, it's already got a buzz around it, whatever. If you release it towards the embargo date and early, yes, but otherwise, there's just so many things that, I mean, what your most popular video this year, was it this year? It was beginning of this year, the Mac, the Mustang.
Oh, mate.
Or was that end of last year? End of last year.
I filmed that in December.
December, yeah. I mean, that video, and this is a typical example. You how long did that take to film?
20 minutes.
And were you at the point where you're like, oh, I'm not sure I'm even going to put this on my channel because it's taken me 20 minutes and I don't feel...
It was one of those ones I needed to film, and I thought I'll just have a quick chat about owning... The challenge of owning an electric car if you don't have your own charger. That was the premise of the film. I went for a drive on my EV long-term, a Mustang Mach-E, and just did a one take to camera.
Yeah.
The video's 18 minutes long.
And how many views has it got now?
1.1 million.
I mean, amazing.
It did 1 million views in 6 weeks.
Yeah, it's just unreal. Unreal, but almost as much as you want those views and the earnings from them, it's almost frustrating to you. It's like, well, I put no effort into that, and it's frustratingly done so much better than something I put 3 days of work into.
Although it was a hot subject that people engaged with, and I think if to get a video to do well, you have to get people to engage with it. And if you look at all the really successful channels, they're the ones that people really engage with. Whether it's a story, you talk about Matt Armstrong and stuff. The one I'm slightly obsessed with at the moment is Tavares with this P1.
Oh yes, yeah. And Patrick and I were talking about that.
Talk about. I mean, Matt buying that GT3, that's one thing, but that P1, I mean, unbelievable.
Yeah. And you think if that's getting us talking about it, then it's a great subject, and it's something that is definitely going to go viral, isn't it? The whole idea of what he did and what he's bought. And it's not like it was 30 grand. It was, $600,000. It's just, And it's finding niches like that where I think actually a good example was Patrick and I last year. We did the single tank with the 7 Series from London to Madrid. And anyone we told, including I think yourself, before we'd done it, it's like, so what are you doing with that 7 Series? Well, we're driving from London to Madrid on 1 fuel tank. You're what? How far is that? Oh, it's just over 1,000 miles. What? And as soon as if that's an idea, and people like yourself that are knowledgeable in the car world, especially, or random people that aren't even into cars, if they're going, that's not possible, then you've nailed it.
Yeah.
So if someone like Tavares is buying a flood damaged P1 for whatever
everybody in the car world knows about, because it was all over the internet.
Exactly. I mean, it's a genius move, but wow, you've also got to be pretty ballsy to front that kind of cash and take the gamble.
I mean, well, I'm sure many of the people listening have watched some of the videos, but it's like the replacement battery's like over 100 grand for a new.
Yes.
But going back to your Madrid video, an investment in videos, you bought a car to make that video.
Yeah, so that video was...
I mean, come on, man, that's hardcore.
That was a hardcore video, and actually I can blame Lou for that, in a good way. Yeah, I can blame her for my success on that video. Well, it's something that I used to be a chauffeur, for those of you that don't know my background, and so I always ran a 7 Series. I loved them. And just before I closed my chauffeuring business at the beginning of 21, I had a lovely, brand new 730 LD, so the long wheelbase with a 30D in it. And I picked that up, I think, January or February from Tony, January, February 2020. So the timing of buying a new £100,000 chauffeuring car couldn't have been worse, because then our friend COVID came along.
It was a nice car, though.
It was a lovely car. It was really nice when I gave it back as well, because it had literally done no miles. So I was trying to think of, and normally I would separate my business as you do, separate the business with the channel. But at the time I was like, I've just purchased a £100,000 luxury 7 Series, and it's sitting out the back. And I think I had 20,000 miles I could do in it in the first year. So I thought, well, let's film some content with it. And so I filmed a few things. One of them was a mileage challenge, but at the time there was lockdown restrictions. You couldn't go to Scotland and
to go to Barnard Castle.
Maybe. Where's that?
Just that one that Dominic Cummings went to.
Oh yeah, no, I didn't. No, I didn't go there. I avoided that. But I think I went up to Newcastle. Anyway, I did this loop, and I managed to do around 900 miles in it, and it was great. The video did really well, but I was constantly gutted because I wanted to break the 1,000 miles, and I knew it was possible. So that idea from whenever it was, end of 2020, never fizzled away. So I spoke to the guys and girls down at BMW UK. Can you source me a 730? It needs to be a 730D standard wheelbase, because obviously less weight. It has to be a 30D. I'm not interested in a 40D. I'm not interested in a hybrid. It has to be the 30D, because I've done my calculations. So they were like, yeah, we'll find you one. And time went on, and they couldn't find me one because they had the long wheelbase, or they had hybrids, or whatever was more relevant to the press car world. So I kind of started giving up on the idea, but I was really down because in my head it was such a clever concept, and it was something I just wanted to do personally. And so I was at home one night, and I remember we were sitting down on the sofa, and Lou turned over to me and she was like, so how much would a used one cost?
No way.
That's what I mean. I've been hanging there. And so I went like, so I was like, oh, the dream is still on. Yeah. So I went through Auto Trader, and as luck would have it, there was one at Bury BMW in Chiswick, who I have a natural relationship with anyway. And it was the most boggo basic 730D you could ever imagine. I mean, you saw it had like the standard wheels, which nobody went for. It had 0 options on the inside because it was literally it was a one-owner car, it was a family car. But for what we needed, it was perfect, because we put Michelin E-Primacy tyres on it, which fitted on the skinny wheels perfectly. And it was just the most efficient thing ever. And that's kind of happened. But yeah, it costs, I think I paid 25 or 26 grand for it. And I somehow only lost about £1,000 on the price of the car. I had it for 4 months. We did about 4,000 miles in it. But that was definitely, that was the deposit for the house that I've just bought with Lou. My deposit, a big chunk of it. So it was a risky maneuver. But we did it. And again, I think that's what YouTube rewards, risks like that. It's like not quite Matt Armstrong or Tavares levels, but at smaller levels. But yeah, so that's probably the most expensive YouTube video I've ever had to sort of, or YouTube video idea. But thankfully, thankfully it didn't end up costing an arm and a leg. So.
But I think the aspiring YouTubers out there, one of the things is think of innovative ideas, different things. It's not just, there was I remember listening to a podcast years ago with the guy, one of the press team, heads of the press team of one of the UK brands, and he basically said, look, I get so many so many requests for cars. People say, I want an M3 for the week or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
If you can go to a brand or go to someone with an idea for a video that's a bit different, that doesn't need the top of the range sportiest car, and that's how you get it done. Thinking of the ideas is the challenge, though. And then following through on them.
Absolutely, yeah. Thinking of clever ideas that are maybe outside the box a bit, and even if it is an M car, I have to say, good shout out to a mutual friend of ours.
I know who you're going to mention.
Rick.
Mr. Rick the Spud.
I mean, what Rick did with that M3, and unfortunately never got the views. If you haven't seen it, Rick the Spud, big shout out to him. Go and look at his M3. 10 things you can do with the M3, or I can't remember how it's titled. But he put, fair play. He was so excited about getting this M3, as you would be.
He's a small channel, 3,000 subs?
Something like that, yeah.
Subs.
And he got that car, and what he did in the week that he had that car, I think he told me he spent nearly £400 in fuel. He's never going to see any of that money back, but he maximised everything he could, and that video is absolute gold. But unfortunately for him, I think the M3 at the time had already been done. Everyone had reviewed it, everyone had seen it. It didn't have the massive buzz around it, and it's still trickling away, but it's something like that. It's like there's an opportunity, and he just ran with it, like quite literally.
If anyone ever says, "How do you get cars?" I just say, "Go and watch this video." He pitched that idea to BMW UK, and they gave him an M3. He fed sheep with it. It's when he drives into a field with a saloon M3 with a hay bale in the back to go and feed the sheep.
Yeah.
Or he went mountain biking with a baby
bike. Yeah.
But that's what you kind of need to do, and I think. There's the bread and butter reviews of cars, but every now and again, and I try and be as diverse as I can, to my detriment sometimes, I think.
Yeah.
Because I'm not so sure YouTube really necessarily understands what my channel's about, because I'll have such a diverse range of stuff from EVs to flying cars. But
I think that also if we look at each other's views, mine are more consistent. Yours are like extremes, but then you have your like midweek 180s and stuff, so they're never going to get 200,000 views, are they? And I think the way you juggle that is very interesting, and it's something that most people don't do. They'll almost separate it, but I think it's really so you never know when I always say to you, right, it's about time for a viral video on Ped's channel, and boom, there's another one. That's usually something that's quite ridiculous, but
flying car.
Yeah, flying car. Yes, yeah. How is that video going?
500,000 views.
Oh wow! I did say that when you
Well, it's 470, I think.
Oh wow! Well, fair play. I mean, that could have tanked that video, couldn't it? It could have easily. Like, people could have just been like, "I'm not interested in it," but it is those interesting videos on your channel.
Yeah, because technically I didn't drive it and I didn't fly it.
You didn't? Yeah, actually, yeah. Yeah, I remember when you got back, I was like, so how was it? Oh, I didn't really fly it. Oh, what was it like to drive? Didn't really drive. What? 1 second.
Yeah. But I've had some hate for that, don't worry.
Oh, well, yeah. Yeah, well, you got to roll with it. Well, that's really, I think something we need to just touch upon before this first episode comes to an end, because, we're fast approaching 50 minutes, which is...
we should mention, each episode we're going to aim for around about an hour.
Yes.
Right, because we don't think you really want to listen to us for more than an hour.
No, and let us know in the comments if you think that's a good time to aim for, because I agree with that. I think all the good podcasts that I listen to are an hour. If they're 30 minutes, then it's too little.
Yeah.
And if it's much more than, say, an hour and 20, hour and a half, then it's too long most of the time to invest in. But I think we touched upon it earlier on. This is all a learning process for us. This is not even early days. This is the first episode. We have some...
It's like a pilot.
Yeah, this is literally a pilot. Yeah, we have some ideas. As we said, we want to get many exciting guests on throughout this year and beyond. We want to do some live shows, but we also really welcome any suggestions and ideas that you've got, whether it's people to get on the show, places to visit. Because the good thing with this, although Podium Place is going to be our hub essentially, and we're hopefully going to film the majority of stuff down here because it's very convenient for us and it's an awesome place. They do fantastic coffee as well, which we both needed first thing this morning. But we also do want to get on the road and we want to go and do some stuff. We want to go out to Nürburgring and talk to people like Misha and do various trips, obviously stuff with Michelin, access some of their other brand ambassadors that might not even be in the motoring world, as such.
I quite fancy talking to people outside the motoring space about cars, because they might not be a motoring person in terms of content creator or whatever, but they may well love cars.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's always nice to hear a different, not a different opinion, but a different angle or people's ideas and stuff. So I think, I'm looking massively forward to where this brings us and takes us. And I'm sure in many ways it will sit alongside what we do in our other channel, our main channels as well.
I hope so.
And also I'd love to urge many of you, all of you, to subscribe to the YouTube channel, because I see it, and I'm sure you do with our personal channels. I think something like 70% of my viewers aren't subscribed, and it's free to subscribe, and I don't like asking for it. I probably do it once in 20 videos, but if you can hit that subscribe button, it just allows us to do more.
Give us a like, and if you're listening to this on a podcast platform, give us a review on iTunes. Yeah, those type of things, because we're learning about the whole podcast thing.
Yeah, I've got no idea. What is a podcast?
I did do a podcast for Cycle Sunday and stuff, and learned a bit, but it's if you are listening to it on a podcast platform, they have the same kind of things as comments and likes. But if you can give us reviews and stuff, that would be amazing.
Sure.
But yeah, it's. I wonder how many.
Oh yeah. This would be good.
Subscribers, whether or not. I don't know. Here we go.
Oh, is it?
I've got to put my glasses on. Look on. What's 992?
992.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's gone up by 20 odd just during recording the podcast.
1,000 subscribers. I mean, going back to what we've been talking about mostly on this episode, is one of the biggest moments of my YouTube career. And I still look back at that video, and there's a sign of me. I think it's in an Alpina, convertible Alpina. I've got this cardboard sign that I'd written 1,000 across, and that was my thumbnail. And I remember at the time thinking, wow, 1,000 people have committed to subscribing to my channel. And that took years to get to that first 1,000 subs. That's something you need to really work hard on. That's the most important and the hardest, I think, growth is that first 1,000. We're going to have done it in less than 24 hours on this, which is just amazing. I guess when we talked about this, we assumed that naturally a lot of your subscribers and people that watch your stuff and my subscribers would jump ship, and we hope that's going to continue to happen. But still, it's assuming is one thing, and
you never know.
You never know.
I mean, you could also be, Auto Alex is a kind of, was it 300,000 subscribers on one video or something?
Yes, yeah.
But when I got to 1,000 subscribers, I was on holiday in the south of France.
You never go there, Ben?
No, never. And I remember I was 1,000 subscribers, and Tracy said, "That's nothing." He said, "You can celebrate when you get to 10,000 subscribers."
Wow.
Right. And I'm like, "Oh, okay." She goes, "When you get to 10,000 subscribers, I will buy you a bottle of Remy Martin Louis XIII cognac."
Right. That sounds expensive. I don't.
Oh, it is. Yeah. Really expensive. Like, it's a good few grand a bottle.
Wow. Okay.
And by the time I got to 10,000 subscribers, surprisingly, the Remy Martin Louis XIII never turned up. If you've ever watched Cocktail, it's the bottle of brandy that they drink. It's really nice. The empty bottle sells for like 500 quid on eBay.
Wow.
And it never turned up. And I found out that when she bet me that, her best mate was global sales director for Remy Martin. She got a really good friends rate. Yeah. And by the time I got 10,000, she'd gone to another job.
Oh,
I know. So I'm still owed.
Never make promises.
Still owed a bottle of Remy Martin.
Terrible behaviour.
But no, in all seriousness, that is awesome to be I mean, we've still got a few days before this actually hits the internet. That's the weird thing about the podcast.
Yeah.
I think to maybe say that we're going to always record these in person.
Yep.
And not do the whole Zoom thing. So sometimes, depending on when they're going to be recorded, there might be a delay between record date and upload date.
Yep.
So we'll always try and refer to what date is recorded. Because if we're talking about stuff that's happening in the news, it just kind of gives a bit of a balance to that.
Sure.
So we've got a few days left. By the time Friday comes, we could be more than 1,000 subscribers, hopefully.
I think we definitely will be. That's cool.
Well, we've only got about 15 to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are we going to call this one to an end? Look, Mr. Bibendum.
I think we should, mate. I think it's been really good. I've really enjoyed it. It's like, it's sort of the first one's out the way now, and I'm feeling less nervous about doing the rest. I think we should also end by saying once again, massive thanks to Podium Place for hosting us, giving us this awesome space.
Yep.
Huge thanks to Michelin, our headline sponsor.
Head over and follow them on Instagram.
Yes. Oh yeah, Michelin UK.
Michelin UK.
Yeah.
On Instagram.
They've just started a new official Instagram account, which is really good. They're very on top of things and very responsive, which I think is very important for a social media account for a brand, because so many of them are just switched off all the time. It's like, and every so often they'll go and buy 10,000 followers and then no interaction with anyone.
Next episode, we're going to talk about press trips.
Yes.
Next episode, we need to talk about this, because there's nothing worse than being on a press trip with a brand.
Yes.
And they don't even like your social media posts or repost them. You're like,
well, they see him and then they don't do anything, and it's just like, why are we even here in the first place? Anyway, that is literally a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
So big thanks to Manfrotto and Joby, because these are very cool. I haven't moved mine once actually. It's just sat there.
Very cool.
Imagine how sore my arms would be by. But anyway, cool.
And you've managed to get through a whole episode without being, rude, no innuendos.
Well, I've got to start.
I thought you were just about to do one then, but
no, I don't know what you're talking about. Once I get more relaxed behind the camera, I'm sure, you'll be shutting me down in no time.
Yeah.
Patrick will be at the back. There'll be fire coming out of his ears. He'll be like, just pipe it down a bit, boys.
Have you come up with some really cool sign-off line, by the
way? Cheers. No, that was taken as that.
Yeah, that one's taken. I think someone's like, how about... It's an iron. We'll see you on the next episode, guys.
Yes, take it easy. Thanks for tuning in.